The arrival. The stars shimmered above as the massive Zorgon warships entered Earth's orbit. Their hulls gleamed ominously in the moonlight, an undeniable declaration of war. The Zorgon Empire had conquered countless worlds, leaving behind a trail of devastation. Humanity was next on their list, but Earth wasn't just another planet. It was home to a species far more resilient and resourceful than the Zorgon could ever imagine. Captain Jack Harrow stood at the helm of the UNSC Resolute, his eyes scanning the incoming data feeds from Earth's defense satellites. The tension in the control room was palpable as the crew awaited the inevitable. "Sir, the Zorgon fleet is in position," Lieutenant Riley reported, her voice steady despite the situation. "They've deployed ground forces in multiple locations across the globe." Jack nodded grimly. "Prepare all units for immediate engagement. Send out a global alert. Every nation, every city needs to know what's coming." Across the world, sirens wailed as humanity braced for the onslaught. But this was not a time for fear. It was a time for defiance. Earth's inhabitants had faced extinction-level threats before, and each time they had emerged stronger. This would be no different. On the surface, Zorgon troops descended from the skies, their drop pods slamming into the ground with seismic force. The alien soldiers emerged, towering over the humans, their exoskeletons gleaming under the sun. They moved with military precision, their plasma rifles humming with lethal energy. In the small town of Clearwater, Texas, Sergeant Elena Ramirez led her squad through the narrow streets. The town was eerily silent, its residents having been evacuated to underground bunkers. The only sounds were the distant booms of Zorgon artillery and the occasional crackle of static from the squad's radios. "Eyes sharp, people," Elena ordered, her voice barely a whisper. "They're here somewhere." Suddenly, the ground trembled as a Zorgon drop pod crashed into the street ahead. The squad scrambled for cover as the pod's doors hissed open, revealing a squad of Zorgon soldiers. Their leader, a hulking figure with glowing red eyes, surveyed the surroundings before barking orders in their guttural language. "Open fire!" Elena shouted, and the street erupted in a hail of gunfire. The human bullets ricocheted off the Zorgon armor, but Elena's squad was undeterred. They had trained for this, knew the weak spots in the Zorgon's defenses. The Zorgon leader cracks and sneered as he advanced, his plasma rifle spitting deadly energy bolts. The humans were outmatched, their weapons primitive, their tactics laughable. This would be an easy victory. But as the battle raged, Cracks began to notice something unsettling. Despite the overwhelming odds, the humans didn't retreat. They fought with a ferocity he had never encountered before, their every move calculated, their resolve unbreakable. Elena's squad was pinned down, their ammunition running low. But she refused to give up. "Grenades," she ordered, and her team hurled their explosives at the advancing Zorgon. The street shook with the force of the blasts, and for a moment, the Zorgon assault faltered. "Push forward," Elena roared, and her squad surged ahead, using the momentary confusion to close the distance. Elena herself charged at Cracks, her combat knife drawn. The alien commander reacted quickly, parrying her strike with a swipe of his armored arm. Cracks sneered down at the human woman, his plasma rifle aimed at her chest. "Foolish human," he growled. "You cannot hope to defeat the Zorgon Empire." Elena met his gaze, her eyes blazing with determination. "We're not just fighting for ourselves," she said through gritted teeth. "We're fighting for our families, our homes, and our future. And we'll never stop." Before Cracks could react, Elena thrust her knife into a gap in his armor, the blade piercing through the alien's thick hide. Cracks roared in pain, staggering back as Elena yanked the knife free. The Zorgon soldiers hesitated, their confidence shaken. Cracks, wounded but still standing, glared at Elena with a mixture of fury and respect. This wasn't the easy conquest he had expected. As the Zorgon troops regrouped, another human figure emerged from the smoke, a tall, muscular man with a determined expression. Captain Jack Harrow had arrived on the battlefield. "Captain," Elena gasped, blood trickling from a wound on her arm. Jack nodded to her. "Good work, Sergeant. Now let's show these aliens what humanity is made of." With Jack leading the charge, the human forces renewed their assault. The battle raged on, but something had shifted. The Zorgon were no longer the unstoppable force they believed themselves to be. They had underestimated the human spirit, the unyielding determination that drove humanity to fight against impossible odds. Cracks watched as his soldiers fell one by one, their superior technology rendered useless against the sheer willpower of the human fighters. For the first time in his life, Krax felt a flicker of doubt. Perhaps the Zorgan Empire had made a grave mistake. As the sun began to set, the battle for Clearwater reached its climax. Jack and Alina, side by side, fought their way through the remaining Zorgan forces. With each fallen enemy, their resolve only grew stronger. Finally, Krax found himself cornered, his plasma rifle destroyed, his troops decimated. He looked at the two humans before him, their faces grim yet resolute. They were battered and bruised, but their spirits were unbroken. Krax dropped to one knee, his strength nearly spent. "Why do you fight so fiercely?" he asked, his voice a hoarse whisper. "What drives you to resist when all seems lost?" Jack stepped forward, his gaze steady. "Because we have something worth fighting for," he said. "Something you'll never understand. Freedom, hope, and the belief that no matter how dark the night, the dawn will always come." Alina raised her weapon, her finger on the trigger. But before she could fire, Jack held up a hand, stopping her. "No," he said softly. "Let him go." Krax stared at them in disbelief. "You're sparing me? Why?" "Because we're not like you," Jack replied. "We don't kill for sport or conquest. We fight to protect what's ours. And when the fight is over, we believe in mercy." For a long moment, Krax was silent. Then slowly he rose to his feet, his gaze locked on Jack's. "I will remember this, human," he said. "Perhaps one day the Zorgan Empire will learn the value of mercy." With that, Krax turned and walked away, disappearing into the smoke-filled streets. The battle for Clearwater was over, but the war had only just begun. Jack watched the alien commander go, his mind racing with the implications of what had just transpired. Elena stepped up beside him, her face etched with worry. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Jack sighed, his shoulders heavy with the weight of his decision. "I don't know," he admitted. "But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes the strongest weapon we have is our humanity." As the last light of day faded, the human forces began to regroup, tending to the wounded and preparing for the battles to come. The fight for Earth was far from over, but in that moment they had won a small but significant victory, a victory that proved humanity would not go quietly into the night. The flames of resistance. The dawn broke over a city in ruins. The once bustling metropolis was now a battlefield, scarred by the relentless conflict between the human defenders and the invading Zorgan forces. Smoke billowed from shattered buildings, and the air was thick with the acrid stench of burning metal and scorched earth. But amidst the devastation, a fierce determination burned in the hearts of the remaining human resistance fighters. Captain Jack, now a legend among his people, stood atop a crumbling wall, his gaze sweeping across the devastated landscape. His eyes, hardened by countless battles, reflected the unyielding resolve of a man who had lost everything but his will to fight. The ragtag group of soldiers behind him looked to Jack for guidance, their faces etched with the lines of fatigue and despair, yet still brimming with a flicker of hope. "We can't let them win," Jack's voice cut through the silence, filled with the fire of defiance. "This is our home, and we'll fight for it until our last breath." The soldiers around him nodded, their spirits lifting slightly at Jack's words. They had witnessed his bravery firsthand, seen him take on Zorgan soldiers with nothing but raw determination and a fierce loyalty to his people. They believed in him, and that belief was their greatest weapon against the seemingly unstoppable invaders. As the resistance fighters prepared for the next assault, Jack's thoughts drifted to Krax, the Zorgan warrior who had turned against his own kind. Krax had proven invaluable, using his intimate knowledge of Zorgan tactics to help the humans strike at the heart of the enemy. But more than that, Krax had become a friend, a brother in arms who had shown Jack that not all enemies were beyond redemption. In the distance, the ground rumbled as Zorgan war machines advanced, their mechanical roars echoing through the shattered city. Jack's grip tightened on his rifle. "Positions," he barked, and his soldiers scrambled into cover, their eyes trained on the approaching enemy. The first Zorgan troops appeared on the horizon, their armor glinting in the morning light. Jack took a deep breath, steadying himself. This battle would be their hardest yet, but he knew that the human spirit was not so easily broken. A clash began with a deafening explosion as the resistance fighters unleashed their first volley. Plasma bolts and bullets tore through the air, and the Zorgan forces responded in kind, their advanced weaponry cutting through concrete and steel with terrifying ease. But the humans fought with a tenacity that belied their inferior technology, using the ruins of their city to their advantage. Krax, leading a small squad of human soldiers, moved through the shadows, his alien eyes scanning for weaknesses in the Zorgan lines. His heart pounded in his chest, a mix of fear and determination driving him forward. He knew that this battle could be his last, but he also knew that he had found something worth dying for. The Resistance's attacks were surgical, targeting key Zorgan assets and sowing chaos among their ranks. But the Zorgan were relentless, their superior numbers and firepower gradually overwhelming the defenders. One by one, the human fighters fell, their blood staining the broken streets. Jack fought like a man possessed, his every move calculated to inflict maximum damage, but even he could feel the tide turning against them. The Zorgan were pushing them back, inch by inch, and soon there would be nowhere left to retreat. A sudden explosion rocked the battlefield, and Jack was thrown to the ground. His vision blurred, and for a moment he thought it was over. But then, through the smoke and debris, he saw Krax standing over him, his hand outstretched. "Get up, Captain." Krax's voice was steady, his eyes fierce. "We're not finished yet." Jack grasped Krax's hand, pulling himself to his feet. Together, they stood against the oncoming horde, human and Zorgan united in a final stand. The battle raged on, a desperate struggle for survival that would be remembered in the annals of history. And as the flames of resistance burned brighter than ever before, Jack knew that they had already won. For even if they fell, they would do so as free men and women, their spirits unbroken, their courage undimmed. And that more than any weapon was their greatest strength, allies in the dark. The battlefield was a hellscape of twisted metal and burning wreckage, yet amidst the chaos, Jack and Krax fought side by side, their movements synchronized as if they had trained together for years. Each strike, each shot, was a testament to the bond that had formed between them, a bond forged in the crucible of war. As the Zorgan forces pressed forward, Jack spotted a group of his soldiers pinned down by enemy fire. Without hesitation, he signaled to Krax, and the two sprinted towards their comrades. Plasma bolts zipped past them, the ground erupting in bursts of dirt and debris. But they moved with the speed and precision of seasoned warriors. "Cover fire," Jack shouted as they reached the embattled soldiers. The group responded instantly, their rifles spitting fire at the advancing Zorgan troops, creating a momentary window of opportunity. Jack and Krax dove into the fray, taking up defensive positions beside their comrades. "We need to take out that heavy gun," Jack barked, pointing to a Zorgan emplacement that was tearing through their ranks. Krax nodded, his alien eyes narrowing as he assessed the situation. "I can get close," Krax said, his voice low but confident. "Distract them, and I'll handle the rest." Jack didn't need to hear more. He trusted Krax implicitly, knowing that the Zorgan defector had proven his loyalty time and again. "Go," Jack ordered before turning to his soldiers. "Focus all fire on that gun. Give Krax some cover." The soldiers complied, unleashing a torrent of gunfire at the Zorgan position. Under the cover of the barrage, Krax moved swiftly, his agile form slipping through the shadows like a phantom. The Zorgan troops, caught off guard by the sudden intensity of the human attack, failed to notice Krax until it was too late. With a fierce battle cry, Krax leaped onto the heavy gun, using his superior strength to overpower the Zorgan gunners. In a matter of moments, the emplacement was silenced, its operators lying lifeless at Krax's feet. He turned back to Jack, giving a brief nod of acknowledgement. "Nice work, Krax," Jack called out, relief washing over him. But their victory was short-lived. A new wave of Zorgan reinforcements was advancing, their numbers seemingly endless. "We can't hold this position," one of the soldiers yelled, panic creeping into his voice. Jack knew he was right. They were running out of time, and their resources were nearly depleted. The Zorgan were relentless, and despite their best efforts, the resistance was being pushed to the brink. Just then, a crackling sound came over Jack's earpiece, an encrypted communication channel that only the highest-ranking resistance leaders used. "Captain Jack, do you copy?" Jack pressed a hand to his ear, trying to make out the voice over the din of battle. "This is Jack. Who's speaking?" "This is Lieutenant Mendez from Echo Squad. We've secured the underground tunnels beneath Sector 7. You need to fall back and regroup with us. We've got a plan." The mention of Sector 7 sparked a memory in Jack's mind. The underground tunnels, a vast network of abandoned subway lines, had been their last-ditch contingency plan, a place where they could regroup, rearm, and possibly turn the tide. But using them meant abandoning the surface, and with it, their city. Jack hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. But then he glanced at his men, their faces worn and bloodied, yet still filled with determination. They had given everything for this fight. If there was any chance of survival, of victory, he had to take it. Understood, Jack responded, his voice firm. We're falling back. Get those tunnels ready. He turned to his soldiers, his expression resolute. We're pulling out. Head to the tunnels in Sector 7. It's time to regroup. The soldiers nodded, trusting Jack's judgment without question. As they began their retreat, Jack and Cracks took up the rear, covering their comrades as they made their way through the burning ruins. The Zorgan forces, sensing the retreat, surged forward, determined to crush the remaining resistance. But Jack and Cracks were not so easily defeated. Together, they laid down a withering barrage of fire, buying precious time for their men to escape. The ground shook as explosions rocked the battlefield, but the two warriors held their ground, refusing to give an inch. Finally, as the last of the soldiers disappeared into the tunnel entrance, Jack and Cracks began their own retreat. They moved quickly, ducking and weaving through the rubble until they reached the underground passage. The heavy steel door slammed shut behind them, sealing them off from the chaos above. In the dim light of the tunnel, Jack looked around at his soldiers, tired, battered, but alive. For now, they had escaped the jaws of death, but the fight was far from over. As they descended deeper into the tunnels, Jack knew that the coming days would test them in ways they had never imagined. But with Cracks by his side and the resilience of his people to drive them forward, he believed they could still find a way to win this war. Let's move, Jack said, his voice echoing through the underground chamber. We got work to do. And with that, the resistance plunged into the darkness, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them in the depths below. The deep strategy. The tunnels beneath the city were a labyrinth of twisting corridors and forgotten passageways, remnants of a bygone era when humans had relied on subways to traverse the sprawling metropolis. Now they served a new purpose, a refuge for the last remnants of humanity fighting against the Zorgan onslaught. Jack led his team deeper into the maze, the dim lights casting long shadows on the damp walls. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and rust, and the distant echoes of dripping water were the only sounds apart from their footsteps. The weight of their situation hung heavily over them, but there was a sense of grim determination in the air. They had escaped death for now, but the war was far from over. As they rounded a corner, they were greeted by the sight of Echo Squad. Lieutenant Mendez and his team had already set up a makeshift command center in one of the larger chambers. Maps and charts were spread across tables, and portable communication equipment buzzed with activity. Despite the urgency of the situation, there was an air of calm professionalism among the soldiers. They were ready for whatever came next. Captain Jack, Mendez called out as he approached, extending a hand. Good to see you made it. Jack shook his hand firmly. We wouldn't have made it without your signal, Mendez. What's the situation? Mendez led Jack to the central table, where a holographic map of the city flickered into view. It displayed the current positions of the Zorgan forces and the remaining human resistance cells scattered throughout the city. The situation was dire. Most of the city had fallen, and the Zorgan were tightening their grip. We've managed to secure a few key locations underground, Mendez explained, pointing to several marked spots on the map. These tunnels connect to a network that runs beneath the Zorgan's main base of operations. If we can strike there, we might be able to disrupt their command structure and buy ourselves some time. Jack studied the map, his mind racing with possibilities. The plan was risky, but it was their best shot. The Zorgan were heavily fortified above ground, but if they could hit them where they least expected it, beneath their feet, they might be able to turn the tide. How well do we know these tunnels? Jack asked, eyeing the network of passageways that snaked beneath the city. Not as well as we'd like, Mendez admitted, but we've got scouts mapping the area. It's a maze down here, but if we stick to the plan, we should be able to navigate it. Cracks, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. The Zorgan are not accustomed to underground warfare. Their tactics are designed for open terrain. If we can lure them into these tunnels, we'll have the advantage. Jack nodded, appreciating Cracks' insight. Then we use that to our advantage. We'll split into teams, one to attack their base and the other to create diversions. We'll hit them hard and fast, keep them off balance. The plan was quickly set into motion. Jack's team would lead the assault on the Zorgan base, while Echo Squad would focus on creating distractions throughout the tunnel network. They had limited time and resources, but Jack was confident in their ability to execute the plan. The element of surprise was on their side, and they had nothing left to lose. Before the team set out, Jack gathered his soldiers for a final briefing. The chamber was silent as they listened to his words, their faces illuminated by the dim glow of the map. "This isn't just about survival," Jack said, his voice steady and strong. "This is about fighting back. The Zorgan think they've won, but they don't know what we're capable of. We're going to show them that humanity doesn't go down without a fight. We've all lost something in this war, but as long as we stand together, we still have hope. Let's make sure they remember who we are." The soldiers responded with a quiet, determined nod. They knew the odds were against them, but they had seen what humanity was capable of when pushed to the brink. This was their chance to strike back, to make the Zorgan pay for every inch they had taken. As the teams prepared to move out, Krax approached Jack, his expression serious. "I've fought many battles, Captain, but none like this. If we succeed, it will be because of the strength of your people." Jack looked at Krax, his respect for the Zorgan defector growing with each passing moment. "And because of the courage of those who stand with us, Krax, let's make sure we give them something to remember." With that, the team set off, disappearing into the darkness of the tunnels. The air was tense, every step echoing through the passages as they made their way toward the Zorgan stronghold. They moved swiftly, the weight of their mission driving them forward. As they approached the final stretch, the sounds of battle above grew distant, replaced by the eerie silence of the underground. The tension was palpable, each soldier focused on the task ahead. Jack could feel his heart pounding in his chest, but he pushed the fear aside, knowing that they were on the brink of something crucial. Finally, they reached the tunnel that led directly beneath the Zorgan base. Jack signaled for his team to halt, taking a moment to assess the situation. The base was just above them, a fortress of alien technology and formidable defenses. But down here, in the shadows, they had the advantage. "All right, this is it," Jack whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the base's machinery. "We plant the charges, and when they go off, we hit them with everything we've got. No hesitation, no mercy." The soldiers nodded, their expressions resolute. They knew what was at stake, and they were ready to do whatever it took to succeed. As the charges were carefully placed along the tunnel walls, Jack felt a surge of adrenaline. This was the moment that would determine the future of their world. He glanced at Krax, who was focused and calm, a reminder that they were not alone in this fight. When the final charge was set, Jack gave the signal. The team retreated to a safe distance, crouching in the shadows as they waited for the explosions that would shake the very foundations of the Zorgan base. The seconds ticked by, each one stretching into an eternity. Then, with a deafening roar, the charges detonated, sending shockwaves through the tunnels. The ground above trembled, and the walls of the base cracked and splintered as the carefully planted explosives did their work. "Now," Jack shouted, leading the charge as they stormed into the breach. The Zorgan forces, caught completely off guard, were thrown into chaos as the humans emerged from the depths, weapons blazing. The battle that followed was fierce and unrelenting. The humans fought with a ferocity born of desperation, their attacks precise and devastating. The Zorgan, disoriented and reeling from the explosions, struggled to mount a coherent defense. Krax moved like a force of nature, cutting through the enemy ranks with deadly efficiency. The tide had turned, if only for a moment, but Jack knew that every second counted. They had to press their advantage, to push the Zorgan to the brink. As they fought their way deeper into the base, the sounds of battle echoed through the corridors, a symphony of destruction. The resistance had come for the Zorgan, and they would not be denied. And in that moment, in the heart of the enemy stronghold, the spark of hope that had been nearly extinguished began to burn bright once more. The breaking point. The Zorgan base, once a symbol of their dominance, was now a scene of utter chaos. Jack's team had turned the tide, but they knew that their window of opportunity was limited. The Zorgan forces, though disoriented, were rapidly regrouping, their advanced technology adapting to the unexpected assault. Jack, leading from the front, knew they had to press on. His team moved with deadly precision, each member a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of humanity. The corridors of the base were a maze of sleek alien architecture, but Jack's instincts and their meticulous planning guided them forward. Every corner they turned was met with resistance, but they cut through with determination. Krax was a force to be reckoned with, his knowledge of Zorgan tactics proving invaluable. He anticipated their moves, directing Jack's team to exploit every weakness in the enemy's defenses. His dual knowledge of both human and Zorgan warfare created a lethal synergy, turning every encounter into a victory. As they pushed deeper, the team reached a vast chamber at the heart of the base. The room was filled with a hum of energy, emanating from a colossal machine that dominated the space. Its purpose was clear. It was the control hub for the Zorgon's entire operation in this sector. If they could destroy it, it would cripple the enemy's command structure and potentially turn the tide of the war. "That's our target," Jack said, his voice resolute. "We take it out, and we've got a real chance to save this city." But the Zorgon were not about to let their stronghold fall without a fight. As Jack's team approached the machine, a contingent of elite Zorgon soldiers appeared, their movements precise and lethal. These were not the disoriented troops they had faced earlier. These were the best the Zorgon had to offer. The battle that followed was intense and brutal. The elite soldiers fought with a cold efficiency, their weapons tearing through the air with deadly accuracy. Jack's team responded with equal ferocity, their human grit and determination pushing them beyond their limits. But the Zorgon's advanced technology was formidable, and for every enemy they took down, another seemed to take its place. Amidst the chaos, Krax faced off against one of the Zorgon commanders, a towering figure clad in sleek, dark armor. The commander moved with a terrifying grace, his strikes swift and deadly. But Krax was unyielding, matching the commander blow for blow. Their duel was a clash of titans, each strike sending shockwaves through the chamber. Jack, while directing his team, caught sight of the duel and knew that Krax was the only one who could take down the commander. "We've got to buy him time," Jack shouted to his team. "Focus on keeping the others off his back." The team rallied, forming a defensive line that allowed Krax to concentrate fully on his fight. The sound of gunfire and the clash of blades filled the chamber, but the humans held their ground, their determination unwavering. Krax and the Zorgon commander circled each other, both seeking an opening. The commander struck first, his blade slicing through the air with a hiss. Krax parried the blow, countering with a strike aimed at the commander's exposed side. The commander deflected it, but Krax was relentless, pressing his advantage with a flurry of attacks. Finally, Krax saw his opportunity. As the commander overextended on a powerful strike, Krax sidestepped and drove his blade into the commander's side. The Zorgon staggered, but before he could recover, Krax delivered a final, decisive blow, sending the commander crashing to the ground. The fall of their commander sent a ripple of confusion through the remaining Zorgon forces. Jack seized the moment. "Now, take out that machine." The team moved swiftly, planting explosives around the massive device. The Zorgon forces, now leaderless and disorganized, tried to stop them, but it was too late. Jack and his team pulled back as the charges were set. "Everyone, clear out," Jack ordered, his voice carrying over the din of battle. The team retreated, making their way back through the corridors they had fought so hard to reach. The Zorgon were in disarray, their defensive lines crumbling as the humans withdrew. As they reached a safe distance, the explosives detonated. The sound was deafening, and the entire base shook as the control hub was obliterated. The machine, once the nerve center of the Zorgon's operations, was now a smoldering ruin. But the victory came at a cost. Several members of Jack's team had fallen in the final push, their sacrifice etched into the walls of the Zorgon stronghold. The survivors, battered and bruised, regrouped outside the base, the taste of both victory and loss heavy in the air. Jack looked at his team, their faces grim but resolute. They had struck a major blow against the Zorgon, but the war was far from over. The city was still under siege, and the Zorgon would undoubtedly retaliate with even greater force. Krax, his breathing heavy from the fight, approached Jack. "We've done what we came to do, but the Zorgon will not take this lightly. We must prepare for their response." Jack nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We'll head back to the tunnels, regroup with Echo Squad, and plan our next move. We've shown them what we're capable of, but now we need to make sure we're ready for whatever comes next." As the team made their way back into the maze of tunnels, the city above still echoed with the sounds of battle. But beneath the surface, in the darkness, a new hope had been kindled. The resistance had struck a blow that the Zorgon would not soon forget, and the fight for humanity's survival was far from over. Rallying the resistance. Back in the relative safety of the underground tunnels, Jack's team rejoined Echo Squad. The reunion was somber, victory had been achieved, but the cost was high. The tunnels, once a place of desperation, now buzzed with renewed energy. Word of the team's success spread quickly among the resistance fighters, lifting their spirits even as they mourned the loss of their comrades. Echo Squad's leader, Captain Mara, met Jack with a firm handshake. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, assessed the situation. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with both admiration and concern. But the Zorgan will retaliate. We need to prepare for their counterattack. Jack nodded, the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders. We've crippled their operations, but they'll come back stronger. We need to rally every able body, fortify our defenses, and strike while we still have the advantage. The resistance fighters, inspired by Jack's success, rally around him. They were a mix of hardened soldiers, civilians turned fighters, and alien allies like cracks who had joined their cause. Despite their differences, they were united by a common goal: to protect their city and drive the Zorgan out of their world. In a makeshift command center deep within the tunnels, Jack, Mara, Cracks, and other key leaders gathered around a holographic map of the city. The map displayed Zorgan positions, resistance strongholds, and areas of the city still contested. Cracks pointed to several locations on the map. The Zorgan will likely regroup here and here. These are their most defensible positions. We can expect them to concentrate their forces there. Mara leaned in, her mind working through the options. We need to hit them where it hurts, disrupt their supply lines, and force them to spread their forces thin. If we can keep them off balance, they won't be able to mount a coordinated counterattack. Jack considered the plan. We'll split our forces into strike teams. Each team will hit a different target simultaneously. If we can time it right, we can catch them off guard. The leaders agreed, and preparations began immediately. Weapons were distributed, plans were drawn up, and messages were sent to resistance cells throughout the city. Everyone knew what was at stake. The next few hours would determine the fate of the city, and possibly the entire planet. As the resistance mobilized, Jack found a moment to speak privately with Cracks. The alien warrior, now fully integrated into the human forces, had proven himself time and again. Jack took a deep breath and addressed the room. We fought together, bled together, and lost too many friends along the way. But we've also proven that we're stronger than they ever thought possible. This is our city, our planet. We're going to take it back. The room erupted in a chorus of agreement, the tension replaced by a fierce determination. The plan was simple but risky. The resistance would launch a coordinated assault on the government district, hitting the Zorgan from multiple directions. At the same time, small specialized teams would infiltrate the district's key buildings to disrupt the Zorgan's command structure and create chaos. As the fighters prepared for battle, Jack took a moment to check in with his team. They were tired, worn from weeks of constant fighting, but their spirits were high. Each one of them had a personal reason for being there, and now, on the brink of victory, those reasons burned brighter than ever. Before they left, Jack addressed his team one last time. No matter what happens, we stand together. We've come too far to let them take this city back. Let's show them what it means to be human. The team responded with a resounding cheer, and with that, they moved out into the city for what they knew could be the final time. The assault began at dawn. The resistance forces, moving under the cover of darkness, converged on the government district from all directions. The Zorgan, alerted to their presence, responded with overwhelming force. The sky was lit with the flashes of energy weapons, and the streets echoed with the sounds of battle. Jack's team moved quickly through the streets, using every bit of cover they could find. The Zorgan had fortified their positions well, and each inch of ground was hard-won. But the resistance fighters were relentless. They pressed forward, their determination fueled by the knowledge that victory was within reach. As they reached the heart of the government district, Jack led his team into one of the key buildings, a massive structure that had once housed the planet's leaders. Now it was the Zorgan's central command post in the city. Taking it would cripple the enemy's ability to coordinate their forces. Inside, the building was a maze of corridors and stairwells, each one heavily guarded. The team moved with the precision of a well-rehearsed unit, taking out Zorgan soldiers as they advanced. Every step was a battle, every corner a potential ambush. But they pushed on, driven by the knowledge that this was their only chance. Finally, they reached the command center. The room was filled with alien technology, holographic displays, strange consoles, and devices beyond human understanding. In the center of it all stood the Zorgan commander, surrounded by his elite guards. The battle that followed was intense. The Zorgan guards fought with a ferocity born of desperation, but the resistance fighters matched them blow for blow. The room became a storm of chaos, blaster fire, the clash of blades, and the shouts of combatants. Jack faced the Zorgan commander directly. The alien was larger than the others, his presence imposing, but Jack was undeterred. They circled each other, both knowing that this fight would determine the fate of the battle. The Zorgan commander struck first, his blade moving with blinding speed. Jack dodged, barely avoiding the lethal blow, and countered with a strike of his own. The two warriors moved with deadly grace, each attack met with a swift defense. The battle seemed to stretch on for hours, though it was only minutes. In the end, it was Jack's resilience that won the day. As the Zorgan commander overextended himself in a final desperate strike, Jack sought his opening. He moved quickly, his blade finding its mark. The Zorgan commander staggered, a look of disbelief in his eyes as he fell to the ground. With the commander down, the remaining Zorgan forces in the building faltered. The resistance fighters seized the opportunity, quickly overwhelming the remaining guards. The command center was theirs. Outside, the battle raged on, but the tide had turned. With their command structure in disarray, the Zorgan forces began to crumble. The resistance fighters pressed their advantage, pushing the enemy back street by street. As the sun rose over the city, the last of the Zorgan forces retreated. The government district and the city itself was back in human hands. Exhausted but victorious, Jack's team emerged from the command building to the sight of their comrades cheering. The city, once a symbol of Zorgan oppression, was now a testament to human resilience and determination. Jack looked out over the city, his heart filled with a mix of emotions. They had won, but the cost had been high. Too many lives had been lost, too much destruction had been wrought. But they had done what they set out to do. They had reclaimed their city. Captain Mara approached him, her expression one of both relief and respect. "We did it," she said simply. Jack nodded, too tired to say much more. But in that moment, words weren't necessary. They had fought together, survived together, and now they would rebuild together. Krax joined them, his alien features unreadable but his tone sincere. "The Zorgan will not return here. You have shown them that this world is not theirs to take." Jack knew Krax was right. They had faced the worst the Zorgan could throw at them and emerged victorious. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it was a future they could shape themselves. As the city's survivors began to emerge from hiding, the resistance fighters started the long process of rebuilding. The scars of war would take time to heal, but the spirit of the people was unbroken. And Jack, standing amidst the ruins of the city he had fought so hard to protect, knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. The fight for their world was far from over, but for now they had won a crucial victory, and that was enough. Epilogue. A new dawn. The days following the final battle were a whirlwind of activity. The people of the city, weary from the long occupation and the intense fighting, slowly began to emerge from their hiding places. Some came with tears in their eyes, others with wary looks, but all with a sense of cautious hope. The nightmare of Zorgan rule had finally ended. Jack stood on a makeshift platform in the city's central square, now cleared of debris and the remnants of war. The square, once the site of grim spectacles under Zorgan control, was now filled with survivors and resistance fighters, their faces a mix of relief and exhaustion. Captain Mara Krax and the other leaders of the resistance were at his side. Jack could see the toll the battle had taken on them, but he also saw the glint of triumph in their eyes. They had achieved the impossible, and the people looked to them for guidance in this new chapter. Jack stepped forward, his voice carrying across the square. "Today we stand together as one people, united by our struggle, bound by our sacrifices, and determined to reclaim our future." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. They had suffered, but they had also discovered a strength they never knew they possessed. "The Zorgan thought they could break us," Jack continued, his voice growing stronger. "They thought they could take our world and make it theirs. But they were wrong. This is our home, and we've proven that we will fight for it, no matter the cost." A cheer went up from the crowd, small at first but growing louder with each passing moment. It was a sound Jack hadn't heard in a long time, the sound of hope. He looked over at Krax, who nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement of their shared victory. The alien had become an integral part of their fight, and now he was a symbol of the alliance that had formed between two very different species. Mara stepped forward next, her voice ringing with authority. "We have a lot of work ahead of us. Rebuilding won't be easy, and there are still dangers out there. But we've shown that when we stand together, nothing can defeat us." The people listened, their expressions resolute. They knew the road ahead would be difficult, but they also knew they weren't alone. As the crowd began to disperse, returning to the tasks of rebuilding their lives, Jack found a moment to speak with Krax alone. The alien had been quiet during the speech, his thoughts seemingly elsewhere. "Are you going to stay?" Jack asked, curious about Krax's plans now that the battle was over. Krax turned his gaze toward the horizon, where the first hints of a new day were breaking. My mission here is complete, he said, his voice thoughtful. But I will stay for a time. There is still much to learn, and I wish to see how your people rebuild. Jack nodded, understanding. We could use your help. There's a lot we don't know about the Zorgan, and if they come back, Krax's eyes narrowed slightly. They will not return for a long time. You have struck a blow that will echo through their ranks, but I will share what I know to prepare you for any future threats. Jack was grateful. Krax's knowledge and experience had been invaluable, and his presence would continue to be a source of strength for the recovering city. As the days turned into weeks, the city began to transform. The scars of war were still visible, but so were the signs of renewal. Buildings were repaired, streets cleared, and life slowly returned to the once occupied city. The people, hardened by their ordeal, worked tirelessly to restore their home. Under the leadership of Mara, Jack, and the other resistance leaders, a new government began to take shape. A government by the people, for the people, built on the principles of freedom and justice that had guided them through the darkest days. Krax became a trusted advisor, sharing his knowledge not just of the Zorgan, but of the wider galaxy. His presence also symbolized the new alliances that would be necessary in a universe full of potential threats and opportunities. As the city rebuilt, stories of their victory spread to other parts of the planet and even beyond. Other cities, inspired by their resistance, rose up against the Zorgan, and soon the invaders were driven off the entire planet. The humans had done the impossible. They had reclaimed their world from an overwhelming force. One evening, as the sun set over the rebuilt city, Jack stood on a balcony overlooking the central square. The square was filled with people, but this time they weren't there to fight or mourn. They were there to celebrate. Music filled the air, and children ran through the square, laughing and playing. It was a sight Jack had dreamed of, but had never truly believed he would see again. Mara joined him on the balcony, a smile on her face. "We did it," she said, her voice full of pride. Jack nodded, a sense of peace settling over him. "We did, and now we build something better." The night wore on, filled with laughter and celebration, but Jack knew that this was just the beginning. There were still challenges ahead, both on their world and in the galaxy beyond, but they were ready to face them. As he looked out over the city, now bathed in the soft glow of evening, Jack felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had fought, they had endured, and now they had won. And whatever the future held, they would face it together, as one people, one world. For the first time in a long time, Jack felt something he thought he had lost forever: hope, the legacy of unity. In the months that followed the final battle, the city, and indeed the entire planet, began a transformation that would mark the dawn of a new era. The scars of the Zorgan occupation, though deep, became symbols of resilience and unity. People from all walks of life came together, driven by a shared purpose, to rebuild their world stronger than before. Jack, now a respected figure among the people, found himself at the center of this movement. He had never sought leadership, but the events of the past year had thrust him into a role that he could not shy away from. His calm demeanor, strategic mind, and ability to inspire others made him a natural leader in this time of renewal. Captain Mara took on a crucial role in the new government. Her experience in battle and leadership was invaluable, and she became a key figure in organizing the defense and reconstruction efforts. The military, once decimated, was rebuilt with the principles of protecting the people rather than enforcing control. Under her guidance, the new defense forces were trained not just as soldiers, but as guardians of freedom. Krax, the alien who had fought alongside them, became an ambassador of sorts. His knowledge of the galaxy and the different species that inhabited it was crucial as humanity prepared to take its place on the interstellar stage. Krax's presence was a constant reminder of the importance of alliances and understanding in a universe filled with unknown dangers and opportunities. The city, once a symbol of despair, became a beacon of hope. It was renamed Unity in honor of the cooperation between humans and their alien allies. The central square, where so many had suffered under the Zorgan, was transformed into a memorial and a place of reflection. A towering monument was erected in the center, depicting humans and aliens standing side by side, their faces turned toward the future. The inscription at its base read, "Together, we endure." As Unity grew, it attracted people from all over the planet. Skilled workers, artists, scientists, and dreamers all came to be part of the city's rebirth. The spirit of collaboration that had won the war now fueled the city's development. New technologies were developed, blending human ingenuity with insights gained from Krax and other alien allies. The economy began to thrive, and the quality of life improved rapidly. Jack Mara and Krax often met to discuss the future. They knew that their victory over the Zorgon was not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter. They had to prepare for the challenges that lay ahead, both on their own world and beyond. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, and they would need to navigate it carefully. One day, as they sat in a quiet garden in Unity, Krax spoke of the Zorgon. "They will remember what happened here," he said. "You have shown them that humanity is not to be underestimated. But they are a stubborn species, and they may seek revenge in the future." Mara nodded, her eyes steely. "We'll be ready. We've learned how to fight, how to defend ourselves, and we'll keep building alliances, like the one we forged with you, Krax." Jack leaned back, looking up at the sky, now free of Zorgon ships. "It's not just about being ready for another war," he said thoughtfully. "We need to explore, to learn, to grow. We need to reach out to other species to find common ground. That's how we'll truly secure our future." Krax smiled, his alien features softening. "You have the right idea, Jack. The galaxy is full of wonders as well as dangers. The more allies you have, the more you learn, the stronger you'll be." The days turned into years, and the vision that Jack Mara and Krax had for their world began to take shape. Unity became the heart of a global network of cities, all working together to ensure peace and prosperity. The people, once divided by fear and oppression, now stood united by a common purpose. The time came when humanity was ready to venture beyond their own star system. With Krax's guidance, they developed faster than light travel, opening up the galaxy to exploration and diplomacy. Jack and Mara led the first expeditions, reaching out to other species, sharing their story, and forming new alliances. The Zorgon, wary after their defeat, did not return. They watched from a distance as humanity grew in strength and influence. Other species, impressed by humanity's resilience and determination, sought alliances and trade. The galaxy, once a cold and hostile place, became a little warmer, a little more connected. Jack, now older and wiser, looked back on the journey that had brought them here. From the dark days of occupation to the bright future they had built, it had been a long and arduous path. But it had been worth it. They had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity could not only survive but thrive. As he stood in the central square of Unity, now filled with life and energy, Jack felt a deep sense of satisfaction. They had come so far, and there was still so much more to do. But he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. And so the story of humanity continued, a story of hope, of resilience, and of unity. The future was uncertain, but it was bright, filled with endless possibilities. And as long as they stood together, Jack knew they could face anything. The dawn of a new era. Decades had passed since the defeat of the Zorgon and the birth of Unity. The city had grown into a thriving hub of innovation and diplomacy, its influence extending far beyond the borders of Earth. Humanity had become a key player in the galactic community, forging alliances and exploring the stars with a spirit of curiosity and resilience. Jack, now a venerable figure in his later years, had taken on the role of elder statesman. His days were filled with meetings and ceremonies, and he often reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought humanity to this point. The young, vibrant city of Unity had become a symbol of hope and progress, and Jack took pride in knowing that his efforts had played a part in shaping its success. Mara, though retired from active duty, remained a revered advisor and mentor. Her contributions to the new defense strategies and the peacekeeping forces had laid the foundation for a secure and stable future. She continued to inspire the younger generations, sharing her wisdom and experiences. Krax, now a respected ambassador and scholar, had become a bridge between humanity and the many alien civilizations they interacted with. His knowledge and insight had fostered strong relationships and deepened understanding across species. Krax's work ensured that the lessons learned from the Zorgon conflict were not forgotten, but rather used to build a more inclusive and cooperative galaxy. Unity had expanded into a network of cities and outposts, each connected by a web of trade, technology, and mutual respect. The advancements made in science and exploration had opened new frontiers, allowing humanity to discover previously unknown worlds and species. The once imperiled planet had become a beacon of prosperity and cooperation. As Jack looked out over the city from his office, he saw children playing in the parks, families enjoying the vibrant markets, and scientists working on groundbreaking projects. It was a vision he had once dreamed of, but seeing it realized brought him a profound sense of fulfillment. One afternoon, Jack was visited by his old friends Mara and Krax. They had come to discuss the future, as they often did. The three of them had weathered many challenges together and had built a legacy that would endure for generations. Seated in a quiet garden overlooking the bustling city, they reminisced about their past adventures. Krax spoke with a sense of pride, reflecting on the growth of humanity and the positive impact they had made in the galaxy. "You have all done more than you could ever imagine," Krax said, his voice filled with gratitude. "The galaxy respects and admires you for what you have achieved, and I am honored to have been part of this journey." Mara nodded in agreement. "We faced immense challenges, but we emerged stronger and wiser. The unity we forged is a testament to the strength of our spirit." Jack smiled, feeling the weight of their shared history. "It's incredible to see how far we've come. But the most important lesson we've learned is that our strength lies in our ability to work together, to embrace our differences, and to strive for a better future." As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, the trio looked out at the horizon. The sky was clear, and the stars were beginning to twinkle, a reminder of the vast and wondrous universe that lay beyond. Jack turned to his friends with a hopeful expression. "Our work is never truly done. There will always be new challenges and new frontiers to explore. But as long as we remember the values that have guided us, courage, compassion, and unity, we will continue to build a future worth striving for." Krax placed a reassuring hand on Jack's shoulder. "And we will face it together, as we always have." Mara raised her glass in a toast, to the future and to the enduring spirit of humanity. The three friends shared a moment of camaraderie, knowing that their legacy was not just in the achievements they had made, but in the values they had instilled in the generations that would follow. As night fell, and the city lights illuminated the skyline, Jack felt a profound sense of peace. The world was a brighter place, and the future held endless possibilities. Humanity had faced its darkest hours and had emerged into the light, ready to continue its journey among the stars. And so, with hearts full of hope and eyes set on the horizon, they embraced the dawn of a new era, a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit and the power of unity.